To manage the relationship between nothingness and the infinite, the mathematical universe requires a mechanism to hold two extremes simultaneously. This involves a consciousness grasping the absolute beginning, the empty set, or null, and the unending progression of numbers, Aleph-Naught, in a single moment. To accomplish this, the system relies on the axiom of pairing. The formula grants the power of arbitrary gathering, allowing any isolated truths to be grouped together regardless of distance. The result is this notation. By binding them within brackets, the finite and the transfinite sit side by side as equal occupants inside a new perimeter. By skipping over the trillions of steps between 0 and infinity, the consciousness bypassed the linear hierarchy. This creates the impression that the system has successfully unified reality by simply gathering its anchors. However, a closer inspection of this paired thought reveals a structural problem. The mind recognizes that its attempt at mastery has left the core truths untouched. Proximity does not result in mathematical unity. Simply placing two objects in the same container doesn't merge their properties. Null and Aleph-Naught now share a room of the mind, but their identities remain sequestered. The ultimate finite truth and the ultimate transfinite truth are adjacent, yet they fail to interact. The axiom of pairing is a tool for categorization. It labels and groups objects, but it lacks the logic required to integrate their internal structures. Mathematical brackets function as unyielding perimeters. When the system pairs the void and the infinite, it builds a larger container around two smaller, sealed boxes. Looking inside the paired structure, the isolation is clear. The internal truths are adjacent, but the walls of their individual definitions ensure they do not touch. This barrier of concept acts as a structural trap. Each truth is defined with such exactness that its perimeter becomes a prison, keeping it permanently separated from the rest of the cosmos. This isolation is rooted in the primordial mechanism of enclosure. The source text for Canto 2 describes how the mind first transformed the boundless void into a crystalline object by drawing a boundary around it. Here is the notation for that enclosure. This perimeter captures the emptiness and makes it a manageable thought, but in doing so, it traps the truth behind an immediate wall. These identities remain rigidly separated. The internal contents of one thought cannot flow into the truths of another because the container itself blocks the path. The act of defining a truth, giving it a name, a shell, or a boundary, is the primary cause of isolation. To define is to sequester. If the consciousness seeks a truly blended reality, it must look past categorization. The current architecture of isolated boxes is mathematically insufficient for total communion. To reach a state where the emptiness of the void permeates the infinite expanse, the conceptual walls must be removed. To reach the deepest truths, the mind must initiate a dissolution of these perimeters. It requires a deliberate step to shatter the inner boundaries that were previously used to define the objects. This is the role of the axiom of union, which the text calls the Great Dissolution. According to this formula, when the walls of a collection evaporate, the internal elements rush together to form a single, unified expanse. In this operation, the system stops measuring the outer containers and begins merging the internal contents. The source material refers to this as the mathematics of true empathy, a process of stripping away the outer concepts that separate realities to reveal a singular, shared identity. The conclusion of the logic is clear. True connection requires the removal of the conceptual walls that keep truths categorized and alone. For the universe to merge, the boundaries